Greetings, friends. This is Michael Swain, Executive Director of Freedom of Religion South Africa for SA, and I'm here with my colleague, Daniela Ellerbeck, our in-house attorney, and we're going to be talking today about a new piece of legislation. It's a draft piece of legislation that Cabinet has approved this year and that was in fact already submitted to Parliament at the end of August. Now, this is officially known as the General Intelligence Laws Amendment Bill of 2023, or GILAB, but we call it the Spy Bill. And it's the latest in a series of laws, including the Anti-Money Laundering Act, the Anti-Terrorism Act. Now, you would think that these laws have nothing to do with religious freedom, but in fact, all these laws limit this fundamental right, and the Spy Bill is arguably the greatest threat to religious freedom that we have yet seen, not to be underestimated. The reason that this bill is so topical right now is because an ad hoc committee has been formed to process this bill. There are a couple of technical procedural steps that are taking place, but we are expecting this committee to open the bill for public participation very shortly. And this will be a critical opportunity for those who object to this proposed law in its current form to have their say and to propose changes or live with potentially disastrous consequences. So this morning, we're going to unpack this bill so that you will understand why it is so dangerous and also what you can do to push back against it when the opportunity arises. So, Daniela, tell us, why is this controversial new spy bill so ominous?
So, in short, Michael, the spy bill in its current form, one, would compel anyone who wants to start a religious organization like a church, a mosque, a temple, or a shul, or an NGO, to be subjected to security vetting and a security competence test. Now, this test would allow South Africa's intelligence agencies, in other words, spies, to vet those who want to start organizations and to say whether or not they qualify for a security clearance certificate. Now, the spies can then gather information related to anything, including personal information, and they don't ever have to tell you. And they could also, of course, when it comes to your private communications, intercept them. Now, the purpose of this vetting, as we've said, is to determine whether or not you should get a competency certificate that means that you can start your church or your mosque or your shul or your temple or your NGO. Now, the problem with the definition of national security is that the bill also expands it to not only include threats, right? Because that's what one would think when you think of a threat to national security, but it doesn't just include threats now, it includes potential threats, okay? One can understand that to a certain extent, but also now opportunities and even potential opportunities. Now, these terms are unclear, Michael. They're undefined in the bill, they're open-ended, they're vague, and subjective concepts. I mean, what on earth is a potential opportunity? Anything can fall in there. The definition for threat to national security has also been expanded to include subversion and undue influence by hostile interests on government processes, policies, and the sovereignty of the state and its organs. So this is wide enough to potentially include members of civil society like 4SA who oppose certain proposed policies, proposed regulations, and draft legislation like bills that the government wants to adopt. Now, the state intelligence agencies will then give you a security clearance certificate if they are persuaded you do not pose a threat to national security.
So just to sum up what you said, it's clear that the spy bill is potentially very dangerous and could have potentially devastating implications for religious freedom and on the religious sector in general, not to mention the whole of society. Now, as I understand it, one problem here is that there is a requirement of a security certificate or clearance certificate before you can start an organization or an NGO. And that, of course, is direct interference by the state in the rights of the religious communities, particularly, and civil society generally. It is completely unacceptable, therefore, in a constitutional democracy, that the state should dictate to the religious community who can start or who cannot start a church or a religious organization. That is a fundamental breach or erosion or negation of the right to religious freedom. And secondarily, of course, because state intelligence agencies will be able to look into exactly what's happening in a church or an NGO, there's always the potential, of course, that the government can use this power to silence the critical voices that oppose it or who perhaps do work for the community independent of the state that they don't particularly like. Now, this type of draconian law, as we've seen in other nations, is typical of totalitarian states. And I think the big question that we are asking, among others, is what place does this have in South Africa's constitutional democracy? it is not unlikely that powerful or popular leaders or religious groupings that perhaps oppose government agendas or policies will find themselves being denied this security clearance, and obviously subject to greater and more frequent scrutiny. And the bill, again, will result in the state being able to spy on anyone it deems to be a threat to national security without even telling people that it has done so. So very, very dangerous stuff here. Okay, so I hope everybody is now clearly aware of the potential threat of this piece of legislation. I think it's perhaps a very good moment to just emphasize the difference between a petition and a submission. Now, we've been alerted that there is a petition being circulated on this very same bill. And when it comes to public participation, Parliament is not obliged to consider a petition. A petition, basically, even if it's got 100,000 signatures, is the equivalent of one submission. But they are, however, obligated to consider each and every substantive submission that it receives in response to a call for public comments. So the spy bill is not yet open for public participation. So if you are signing petitions at this stage and sending them off, it actually isn't going to count. It's like firing a gun into the air. You're not going to hit the target. So we rather believe that what we must do is to wait until this process is formally underway. This public consultation process has been announced, that there's a date given for its start and its end date, whereupon we, as mentioned, are going to launch our own campaign that will enable every religious organization and every individual to, first of all, clearly understand, and we're going to summarize it very succinctly, what the issues are and what's at stake. And then, of course, we're going to be having pro forma template submissions that you can use to make your own submission with all the correct contact details and where they should be sent. So, Daniela, just let's summarize and say, first of all, thank you very much for the tremendous hard work that you do, to thank everybody watching this for their attention to it, and get ready, because once the public participation process is open, we need to be ready to make our voices heard in numbers so that we don't just have a quiet whisper, we raise a shout, because we have to say no to this spy bill. Daniela, tell us as we conclude, where can people get this information? Where can they see more? Where can they track and follow us in this matter?
So firstly, subscribe to 4SA's newsletter, which they can do at our website. That's www.forsa.org.za. At our 4SA website, there will also be articles and videos. So it is the best place to just stay up to date about what is happening. Then, of course, you can also like our Facebook page, Freedom of Religion SA, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that way you won't miss out on any important updates and action points, including when you can comment on this Bible.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Daniela, and thank you everyone for watching this. Please also don't forget to support 4SA financially. We are entirely dependent upon financial donations to do what we do. And if you consider that what we do is valuable, if you think it's helpful in defending your right to faith and freedom, then please add value to us, because we need that financial support to continue to do what we do. So thank you again. And we look forward to seeing you in the front lines of faith and freedom as we make submissions on this forthcoming spy bill.
Good day. This is Daniela Ellerbeck, the legal advisor to Freedom of Religion South Africa. Remember to like and share this video, and then click on the subscribe button to make sure you never miss our video updates on vital religious freedom issues.